Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The rain hammered against the cabin windows like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Dominic Reeves stared into the darkness beyond his porch, one hand gripping the doorframe, the other resting near the combat knife strapped to his thigh. 3 years since he'd left special operations, and old habits remained firmly intact. "You're going to stand there all night, human?" The figure before him shifted, rainwater cascading from what appeared to be a slick, iridescent exoskeleton. "Or perhaps you prefer I die on your doorstep. That would certainly simplify matters for both of us." Dominic's jaw tightened. The alien, for it was clearly not human despite its roughly humanoid shape, stood about a head shorter than him. Its skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in time with what he assumed was its breathing. Four arms hung at its sides, the lower pair clearly injured. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't slam this door right now," Dominic said, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his system. The alien's face, a delicate arrangement of angles and planes that almost suggested femininity, tilted upward. "Because in approximately 8 minutes, they will find me. And then they will kill me. And then, human, they will kill you, simply for having opened your door." Dominic's mind raced. 3 years of solitude in the Appalachian wilderness, trying to forget what he'd seen and done across a dozen battlefields, and now this. Who's they? The hegemony's hunters. Was one of their scientists. My name is Nix. The alien's luminescent patterns flickered weakly. I discovered something they wanted buried. Something about your species. Against every instinct, Dominic stepped aside. Inside. Now. Nix moved with surprising grace despite her injuries, slipping past him into the cabin's warm interior. Dominic locked the door, drew the curtains, and activated the security system he'd installed. Paranoia had its benefits. "Whatever you're running from," he said, keeping his distance, "I want no part of it." Nix settled onto the edge of his couch, her lower set of arms cradling what appeared to be a wound. "Fascinating. You say this even as you invite me in? Humans truly are contradictory creatures. You're bleeding on my furniture." An accurate observation. Nix's head tilted again, those strange, faceted eyes examining him. "You were a warrior, yes. I can see it in your movements, the way you evaluate threats. The way you've positioned yourself between me and the most obvious escape routes." Dominic didn't respond, instead moving to a cabinet and retrieving a first aid kit. "I don't know if anything in here will help your biology. But basic principles should apply." The gesture is appreciated, though unnecessary. "My physiology will repair itself." Nix's luminescence brightened slightly. "You are curious but afraid to ask questions. Allow me to provide answers. I am Vespari, from what you would call the Cygnus system. The hegemony has ruled our sector for millennia. And they have designated your planet for harvesting." Dominic dropped the first aid kit on the coffee table between them. "Harvesting? Your resources. Your genetic material. Your people." Nix's patterns pulsed rapidly. "Standard procedure for pre-spaceflight civilizations. Except I discovered that humans aren't like the others. Your species has something we've never encountered. And that is adaptability." Nix leaned forward. "Most species evolve to fit their environment. Humans change the environment to fit them. The hegemony fears this quality. They've accelerated their timetable for Earth's acquisition. I couldn't remain silent." A soft beeping sound emerged from somewhere within Nix's exoskeleton. She stiffened. "They're closer than I calculated. We have perhaps 4 minutes. We?" Dominic crossed his arms. "This sounds like a you problem. They know I've made contact with a human. Standard protocol dictates elimination of all witnesses." Nix's luminescence dimmed. "I apologize for involving you. Dominic stared at the alien for a long moment, then cursed under his breath. He crossed to a painting on the wall, swung it aside to reveal a hidden panel, and entered a code. The panel slid open, revealing an arsenal that would have made his former commanders proud. If what you're saying is true, I can't let you leave. He grabbed a tactical vest and began loading it with ammunition. Not because I believe you, but because if there's even a 1% chance you're right, humanity deserves a warning. Nick stood. You would help me? Knowing the danger? I'm not helping you. Dominic checked the action on his rifle. I'm helping us. There's a difference. He tossed her a small pistol, which she caught reflexively with her upper right hand. Can you use that? Primitive, but functional. Nix examined the weapon briefly. I was not designed for combat, but necessity has proven an effective teacher. The security system chimed a warning, movement in the perimeter. Dominic moved to the window and peered through a gap in the curtains. 3 shapes, too tall and too angular to be human, moved through the rain toward his cabin. Back door, he whispered, grabbing a go bag from beneath the dining table. There's a vehicle hidden a quarter-mile east. If we reach it. Something massive slammed against the front door, buckling the reinforced frame. Nix's bioluminescence flared in alarm. They found us, she said, voice suddenly steady. I truly am sorry, Dominic. He glanced at her sharply. I never told you my name. No. Nix raised the pistol, but not at the door, at him. You didn't. The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and metal, and chaos erupted. Dominic dove for cover as something that resembled a bolt of lightning arced through the space where he'd been standing. Nix fired the pistol, not at him, but at the first figure through the door. The shot connected with a wet thud. Traitor. The word came not from the intruders but from what appeared to be a communication device embedded in Nix's exoskeleton. Surrender the human and you may yet live. Nix replied in a language Dominic couldn't understand, her luminescent patterns blazing with intensity. Then she turned to him. I did not betray you. They tracked my distress beacon, one I cannot remove without killing myself. Dominic was already moving, firing controlled bursts at the intruders while backing toward the kitchen. Less talking, more running. Together they burst through the back door into the driving rain, bullets and energy bolts crisscrossing behind them. The forest loomed before them, dark and dense. East. Dominic shouted, and they plunged into the trees, the night swallowing them as behind them, his cabin erupted in flames. The stolen alien vessel hummed beneath Dominic's feet as he paced the narrow bridge. 3 days since their frantic escape from Earth, and he still wasn't convinced he'd made the right choice. The ship, Nix called it a scout-class infiltrator, was barely large enough for the two of them, crammed with technology he couldn't begin to comprehend. Your continued walking serves no purpose except to increase your caloric expenditure, Nix observed from her position at the pilot's console. Her wounds had indeed largely healed, the bioluminescent patterns across her exoskeleton now pulsing with steady, healthy rhythm. Dominic stopped and leaned against a bulkhead. Where exactly are we heading? The hegemony controls 28 star systems in this sector, she replied, manipulating holographic controls with her upper set of arms. But there is a human outpost in what you call the Tau Ceti system. The hegemony believes it abandoned. Wait. Dominic straightened. A human outpost. We haven't colonized anything beyond Mars. Nix's faceted eyes shifted toward him. Your governments have kept many secrets, Dominic Reeves. Just as my people have kept the existence of yours a secret from most of the hegemony's citizens. The revelation hung in the air between them. Dominic had suspected as much, the classified missions, the unexplained phenomena, the warnings from commanding officers about cosmic security. He dismissed it all as military doublespeak. Why did you really save me? He asked finally. You could have left me to die when those hunters attacked. Nix's luminescence dimmed slightly. I require allies. You possess combat expertise and knowledge of human psychology that I lack. That's not an answer. It is the answer you will accept. Her upper arms worked the controls while her lower pair checked what appeared to be a weapon. We are approaching a navigational checkpoint. Hegemony patrols are likely. As if summoned by her words, an alarm sounded through the ship. A holographic display materialized, showing a larger vessel approaching their position. Patrol cruiser, Nick said, her voice tight. Class 3. They've detected us. Dominic moved to what he had determined was the weapons console. Options? Limited. This vessel's stealth systems are compromised from our escape. Its weapons are defensive only. Nix's patterns flashed rapidly. Anxiety, Dominic had learned. We cannot outrun them, and we cannot fight. The comm system crackled to life with a harsh, clicking language. Nix responded, her own voice taking on similar qualities. What are you telling them? Dominic demanded. That we are a research vessel collecting atmospheric samples from uninhabited worlds. Her lower arms gripped the edge of her seat. They are not convinced. Dominic studied the tactical display. The asteroid field. Can we reach it? Yes, but... Do it. Nix hesitated, then altered their course. The ship accelerated, driving toward a dense field of tumbling rocks. The patrol cruiser followed, gaining slowly. They're powering weapons, Nix warned. Dominic pointed to a particular cluster of asteroids. There. Tight formation, unpredictable rotation. Get us in the middle of that. The debris will damage our hull. Better damaged than destroyed. The scout ship dove into the asteroid field, narrowly missing a house-sized rock that tumbled past. Nix's piloting was precise, almost prescient, as she wove through the deadly obstacle course. The patrol cruiser followed but kept a safer distance. A flash of energy lanced past them, vaporizing an asteroid ahead. Another shot, closer this time. They're using the debris field to mask their targeting, Dominic observed. Clever. Not helping, Nix replied through what sounded like gritted teeth, if her species had teeth. Dominic studied the tactical display, an idea forming. Can you target specific asteroids with our defensive weapons? Yes, but... Do it. That cluster ahead, the one with the high metal content. Nix didn't question him this time. The scout ship's weapons fired, not at the pursuing cruiser, but at the asteroid cluster. The concentrated energy shattered the rocks, creating a debris cloud that expanded rapidly in the zero-gravity environment. Now cut power. Everything except life support. The ship went dark, drifting with the scattered debris. Behind them, the patrol cruiser slowed, its sensors sweeping the field but finding only mineral signatures and radiation from the destroyed asteroids. Minutes stretched into an hour as they drifted, powerless and vulnerable. Finally, the cruiser turned away, resuming its patrol route. They believe we were destroyed in the debris field, Nix said, her luminescence brightening as she restored power to the ship's systems. An effective strategy. Old submarine tactic, Dominic explained. Hide among the noise. Nix's head tilted in that curious way of hers. You continue to surprise me, human. Perhaps the records were correct about your species' unpredictability. What records? Dominic asked, but Nix had already returned her attention to piloting the ship out of the asteroid field. Later, as they drifted through open space toward their destination, Dominic found Nix in what served as the ship's medical bay. She was removing a device from her exoskeleton, the tracking beacon she'd mentioned during their escape. You said that would kill you, he remarked from the doorway. A calculated risk, she replied, her lower arms trembling slightly as her upper ones worked delicate tools. The hunters are persistent. They will not stop pursuing us. Dominic stepped forward. Let me help. You lack knowledge of Vespari physiology. I've field-stripped everything from rifles to satellites in the dark. I can follow instructions. After a moment's hesitation, Nix handed him a tool that resembled a cross between forceps and a laser pointer. Hold this against the connecting nerve cluster while I sever the primary anchor. Working together in silence, they removed the beacon. A viscous fluid that might have been Nix's blood seeped from the wound, glowing softly in the dim light of the medical bay. Thank you, she said simply as she applied a regenerative patch to the wound. Dominic nodded. Why are you really doing this, Nix? Betraying your people, risking your life for humans? There's more to it than scientific ethics. For a long moment, she was silent, her luminescence pulsing slowly. The hegemony is not what it once was. Our civilization began as explorers, seekers of knowledge. Now we conquer and consume. What we're doing to Earth, what we've done to dozens of worlds before, it's not exploration. It's extinction. You're a revolutionary, Dominic said. I am a scientist who can no longer ignore the evidence. Her faceted eyes met his. And you? Why does a human soldier help an alien fugitive? Dominic thought about the wars he'd fought, the orders he'd followed without question, and the quiet years afterward, trying to forget. Maybe we're not so different. Maybe we're both looking for something worth fighting for. Nix's luminescence brightened momentarily. The outpost is 2 days away at current speed. You should rest. As Dominic turned to leave, Nix added, the humans you will meet there, they are not like you. They have been away from Earth for generations. Be prepared. For what? He asked. For what humanity becomes when it has nothing left to lose. The human outpost wasn't what Dominic had expected. No sterile corridors or military precision. Instead, a sprawling collection of structures built into the side of a massive crater on an airless moon. Some buildings followed recognizable human architecture, while others incorporated alien design elements, creating a strange hybrid aesthetic that spoke of necessity and adaptation. Welcome to Sanctuary, said the woman who met them at the airlock. She was tall and lean, with skin that suggested long exposure to artificial light. I'm Director Farron. You're lucky we didn't shoot you down on approach. Nix stood slightly behind Dominic, her luminescence dimmed to near invisibility. The director's eyes flickered to her, then back to Dominic. You bring a Vespari to our doorstep and expect welcome? Farron's voice was cold. Interesting choice. She saved my life, Dominic replied. She says the hegemony is planning something big for Earth. Farron's expression didn't change. Follow me. Both of you. They were led through a series of tunnels and chambers, some carved directly from the moon's rock, others constructed from what appeared to be salvaged spacecraft hulls. People watched them pass, humans with the same pale appearance as Farron, but also several beings of distinctly non-human origin. You're not just a human outpost, Dominic observed. We're refugees, Farron replied without turning. Every species here has been harvested by the hegemony in some way. Some of us escaped. Some were rescued. All of us are hunted. They entered what appeared to be a command center, where screens displayed star charts and sensor readings. A dozen people worked at various stations, including several aliens of species Dominic didn't recognize. Tell them what you told me, Farron instructed Nix. The Vespari stepped forward, her luminescence brightening. The hegemony has accelerated its timeline for Earth's acquisition. The preliminary survey teams have already deployed. Full invasion force will arrive within 60 days. A murmur ran through the room. Farron's expression remained impassive. Why should we believe you? The Vespari are the hegemony's chief scientists, architects of their conquest technology. I have evidence. Nix produced a small crystal from within her exoskeleton. Data from the Central Archives. Deployment plans, weapon specifications, and... She hesitated. Experimentation protocols for captured human subjects. Farron took the crystal, inserted it into a reader. Holographic displays filled the air around them, star charts, technical specifications, and images that made Dominic's stomach turn. Humans in laboratory settings, clearly subjected to procedures no living being should endure. These are preliminary results, Nix continued, her voice subdued. The hegemony finds humans uniquely valuable. Your adaptive capacity, your genetic diversity, your neuroplasticity, all rare traits in the known galaxy. Dominic stared at the images. They're studying us like lab rats. Worse, said Farron. They're studying how to weaponize you. She turned to a subordinate. Verify this data against our intelligence. Full analysis. As the officer hurried away, Farron fixed Nix with a hard stare. If this checks out, you've earned a moment's reprieve. Until then, you'll be confined. Wait, Dominic intervened. She risked everything to bring this information. And I risk everything by allowing a Vespari into our sanctuary. Farron's voice softened slightly. We've lost too much to trust easily, Reeves. Surely you understand that. Before Dominic could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician called out, Director. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL at the system's edge. Identification. Farron demanded. Hegemony signatures. 1 command vessel, 4 hunter-killers. Nix's luminescence flared in alarm. They shouldn't have found us so quickly. Unless they followed you, Farron finished, her expression hardening again. Impossible, Dominic countered. We removed her beacon, and we lost a patrol ship in the asteroid field. The technician interrupted, Director, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, a message in multiple languages, including English. Let's hear it, Farron ordered. A harsh voice filled the command center, Attention human outpost. You harbor fugitives guilty of crimes against the hegemony. Surrender the Vespari scientist designate Nix and her human accomplice immediately. Failure to comply will result in total eradication of your settlement. You have 1 planetary rotation to respond. Silence fell over the command center. All eyes turned to Nix and Dominic. It seems, Farron said quietly, we have a decision to make. No decision necessary, Dominic replied. We're not asking you to fight our battle. If what your Vespari says is true, it's already everyone's battle. Farron studied the tactical display showing the hegemony vessels. But 5 warships against our defenses? That's suicide. Nix stepped forward, her luminescence steady and bright. There is another option. The command vessel, I recognize its configuration from the data archives. It's an obsolete model, maintained because of tradition, not tactical advantage. Its shield harmonics are vulnerable to specific frequencies. And you know these frequencies? Farron asked skeptically. I helped design the shield system's replacement. Nix's upper arms moved in what might have been a shrug. The hegemony values efficiency, not innovation. They rarely change foundational systems entirely. Dominic caught on. If we could get close enough. We would need a suitable delivery system for the harmonic disruptor, Nix added. Something small enough to evade their defenses but powerful enough to carry the necessary equipment. Like a scout ship? Dominic suggested. Precisely. Farron looked between them. You're proposing a suicide run. I'm proposing we give them exactly what they're asking for, Dominic said. Us. Just not in the way they expect. After a long moment, Farron nodded. I'll need to consult the council. In the meantime, prepare your plan in detail. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you're right about all of this. Because if you're wrong, we won't get a second chance, Dominic finished. We know. As Farron left, Nix turned to Dominic, her luminescence pulsing with what he had come to recognize as concern. The probability of success is minimal. That's been true of every mission worth undertaking in human history, he replied. We make do with the odds we have. A very human perspective, Nix observed. Well, Dominic said with a grim smile, I am very human. The scout ship drifted through space, all systems except life support powered down. Inside, Dominic checked his equipment one final time, a ritual from his military days that brought him a strange comfort even now, floating in the void between worlds. The harmonic disruptor is calibrated, Nix reported, her luminescence dimmed to conserve energy. But we will have only seconds between activation and the shield's collapse. Seconds is all we need. Dominic secured the last of the explosive charges to his tactical vest. Once we're inside their shield perimeter, they can't fire their main weapons without hitting themselves. They'd spent the past 12 hours refining their plan with Farron and the colony's military advisors. The strategy was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. Use their scout ship to approach the hegemony command vessel under the pretense of surrender, activate the harmonic disruptor to create a momentary gap in the ship's shields, then board the vessel and fight their way to its power core. The colony's ships are in position, Nix said, checking a small handheld device. Once we disable the command vessel's shields completely, they will engage the escort vessels. Dominic nodded. The colony's defensive fleet was small, mostly retrofitted mining vessels and salvaged fighters, but with the element of surprise, they might stand a chance against the hegemony hunters. It's time, he said quietly. Nix activated the ship's comm system. Hegemony command vessel, this is scientist designate Nix. I am surrendering myself and the human as demanded. Requesting docking clearance. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a cold, precise voice responded, clearance granted. Approach Hangar Bay 3. Any deviation from the designated flight path will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Nix replied, then killed the transmission. To Dominic, she said, they suspect a trap. Of course they do. They're not stupid. He checked his weapons one last time. But they're arrogant, and that's what we're counting on. The scout ship powered up, its engines glowing as it accelerated toward the massive hegemony vessel. As they approached, Dominic could appreciate the scale of their enemy. The command ship was enormous, easily the size of a small city, bristling with weapons emplacements and sensor arrays. Entering shield perimeter in 30 seconds, Nix announced, her upper arms working the controls while her lower pair prepared the harmonic disruptor. Disruptor ready, now. The device activated with a high-pitched whine. On their sensors, a small section of the hegemony vessel's shields flickered, creating a temporary gap. Now! Dominic shouted. Nix gunned the engines, driving the scout ship toward the shield gap at maximum speed. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they wouldn't make it, then they were through, inside the shield perimeter. Alarms immediately blared across the hegemony comms. Unauthorized vector change. All defense systems activate. But they were already too close. The scout ship screamed toward the hangar bay, not slowing as it approached. Impact in 5 seconds, Nix warned. Brace. The scout ship crashed through the hangar's force field, skidding across the deck in a shower of sparks before slamming into a row of smaller vessels. Dominic was thrown forward, his restraints cutting into his shoulders. Beside him, Nix's exoskeleton absorbed much of the impact. Status, he groaned, releasing his harness. Functional, she replied, already moving toward the airlock. The disruptor is still active, but they will adapt quickly. They burst from the damaged scout ship into chaos. The hangar bay was a cavernous space filled with various craft and equipment, now being rapidly evacuated as alarm klaxons wailed. Armored hegemony soldiers were already responding, firing energy weapons as they advanced. Dominic took cover behind a cargo container, returning fire with his modified rifle. Which way to the power core? Nix, crouched beside him, pointed toward a heavily secured doorway. Through there, down 3 levels. Simple, Dominic muttered, picking off another hegemony soldier. On my mark, we move. 3, 2, 1, mark. They sprinted across the hangar, Dominic providing covering fire while Nix worked to bypass the door's security. Outside the ship, the colony's fleet would be engaging the escort vessels by now, fighting desperately to buy them time. The door slid open, and they plunged into the corridor beyond. The interior of the hegemony vessel was austere, all sharp angles and efficient design. They encountered surprisingly little resistance as they moved deeper. Most of the crew would be responding to the external attack. "Something's wrong," Dominic said as they reached a central junction. "This is too easy." As if in answer, a massive bulkhead slammed down behind them, sealing off their retreat. Ahead, another door opened, revealing a circular chamber. Inside stood a tall figure flanked by 4 guards, Hegemony Commander, its exoskeleton more elaborate than Nix's, adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial markings. "Scientist Nix," the commander said, its voice resonating strangely. "And her human pet. How predictable you both have become." Nix's luminescence flared. "Commander Vex. I should have known you would lead this mission personally. Did you think we wouldn't anticipate your plan?" Vex gestured, and holographic displays materialized, showing the colony's ships engaged in battle, and losing badly. "Your disruptor technology was clever, but outdated. We adapted within minutes." Dominic tensed, ready to fight, but Nix put a restraining hand on his arm. "There is still time to end this, Vex," she said. "The human species deserves the right to determine its own fate." "No species determines its fate," Vex replied coldly. "The hegemony brings order to chaos. Progress through control. You once understood this, Nix." "I understood a lie," she countered. "What we're doing isn't progress, it's extinction on an industrial scale." "And for what? Resources we don't need? Knowledge we don't apply?" While they spoke, Dominic assessed their options. The guards were positioned strategically, the exit blocked. Their original plan was compromised. But there was something in the commander's stance, something in the way the guards watched Nix rather than him. "Enough philosophy," Vex snapped. "You have failed. Your human allies will be harvested. Earth will fall. The natural order will be maintained." "Maybe," Dominic said, speaking for the first time. "Or maybe humans have something your natural order hasn't counted on." "And what would that be, primitive?" Vex asked contemptuously. Dominic smiled. "Improvisation." He fired, not at Vex or the guards, but at the ceiling above them, where an array of coolant pipes ran exposed. The pipes burst, spraying pressurized fluid across the chamber. The guards raised their weapons, but Nix was already moving, her lower arms throwing something small and metallic into the spewing coolant. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. The chamber filled with dense smoke and steam, breaking the guards' line of sight. Dominic rolled left, Nix right, both firing as they moved. In the confusion, Dominic charged directly at Commander Vex, tackling the much larger alien before it could react. They crashed to the floor, Dominic driving his combat knife into a joint in Vex's exoskeleton. "The core," he shouted to Nix. "Go." She hesitated only a moment before sprinting to a control panel, her upper arms working furiously while her lower ones fought off a guard. The panel's display changed, showing ship schematics. "They've rerouted the power conduits," she called. "The core is protected." Vex laughed, even as ichor leaked from his wound. "You cannot win, human. The hegemony is eternal." Dominic pressed the knife deeper. "Nothing's eternal. That's what you don't understand about us." He leaned close to what passed for Vex's ear. "We know we're going to die someday. Makes us really focus on the here and now." With a massive effort, Vex threw Dominic off, rising to his full height. "Then die now, human." Before Vex could attack, the ship lurched violently, sending everyone sprawling. Alarms blared, different from before. "What's happening?" Dominic shouted to Nyx. Her luminescence pulsed rapidly as she read the ship's displays. The colony fleet, they've concentrated fire on the command ship's propulsion systems. We're losing orbit. Vex barked orders to his remaining guards, who rushed to terminals around the chamber. One of them turned back, reporting something in their clicking language. Critical systems failure, Nyx translated for Dominic. The ship is breaking apart. Dominic grabbed her arm. Time to go. Go where? She asked. The hangar is sealed off. He pointed to an access shaft. Escape pods. Every ship this size has them. They fought their way through the chaos of the dying ship, crew members too busy trying to save themselves to stop them. They reached an evacuation bay just as another explosion rocked the vessel, throwing them against a wall. Last pod, Nyx said, bypassing the security lockout. The small craft's hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air. As they climbed inside, Dominic looked back at the destruction they had wrought. Not how they'd planned it, but effective nonetheless. The Hegemony command ship was breaking apart, its escort vessels either damaged or retreating. The escape pod launched, shooting away from the doomed vessel just as its power core went critical. The explosion lit up space behind them, the shockwave sending their tiny craft tumbling end over end before its stabilizers could compensate. When they finally regained control, Dominic looked out the viewport at the debris field that had been the Hegemony command ship. In the distance, he could see the colony's vessels regrouping, damaged but intact. We did it, he said softly. Nyx's luminescence pulsed weakly. She had been injured in their escape, though how badly he couldn't tell. This is only the beginning, Dominic Reeves. The Hegemony will send more ships, more soldiers. And we'll be ready. He set a course for the colony. Your evidence, combined with what happened here today, Earth has to listen now. We can prepare. Perhaps. Nyx's faceted eyes met his. Or perhaps you have always been prepared, in ways even you do not understand. Humans adapt. You change. You survive. As their pod drifted toward Sanctuary, Dominic thought about Earth, a planet that had no idea what was coming, but had produced beings stubborn enough, creative enough, resilient enough to face it. We'll survive, he agreed. Together. Nyx's luminescence brightened briefly. Together, she echoed. A very human concept. Maybe, Dominic replied with a tired smile, but it seems to be catching on.